My name is Alyssa Carveiro, and I am a civil engineer with Earthworks Pacific, which is a construction company on Kauai. So I was going to just talk a little bit about my education and how I got into the construction industry, and then a little bit about what I do now at Earthworks Pacific. So I was born and raised on Kauai. I went to Kamehameha Elementary School. I was at Chiefus for 1 year, and then from 7th grade until I graduated high school, I was on Oahu at Kamehameha Schools. So I was actually living in the dorm. And in high school, my main interests were science and math classes. I was actually on the math team in high school. So that kind of helped me pick my major as I went to college. In 2009, I was at San Diego State University. And prior to going to San Diego, you get a freshman packet and they ask you what you're planning to major in, what dorm you want to live in, that kind of thing. And at the time, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I liked math. I kind of wanted to head into that field, but there are so many majors. And I was kind of leaning towards pharmacy originally, but the pharmacy program at San Diego State was not as good as their civil engineering program. And my mom is the one who actually insisted that I at least try engineering, fill it out on my application. She said, after your first year, if you don't like it, you can switch. Because my first year of college, I was taking mainly general ed classes. And I took maybe 4 of the civil major required classes. So she said, you know what, you're only taking a couple. If you don't like it, you can switch, but just try it. And of course, my mother knows me and she knows what I like and intuitively knew that I was gonna like engineering. So spilled it out freshman year and stuck with it until I graduated in 2014. So major is an umbrella that covers a lot of these other majors: structural, geotechnical, transportation, water, environmental, and construction management. And when you apply to college, or at least the school I went to, you could major in structural engineering or geotechnical, but because I hadn't quite even decided on my major, I decided to go into civil because you get to learn about all these different specialties in civil engineering. And then from there, you can decide if you want to focus on one of these branches of civil engineering, or in my case, I graduated with my civil engineering degree. And some of the other popular engineering degrees to the side, I have aerospace, audio, computer, chemical, electrical, industrial, mechanical, and those are related somewhat to civil engineering. They're all engineers, but they're not branches off of civil engineering like structural or geotechnical would be. And again, I wanted the well-rounded package when I was going to school, mostly because I couldn't decide on what I wanted to do at the time. And it worked out because I found it very interesting to be able to learn about structural and the dirt side of technical and environmental. There's a choice whether to go into civil engineering design or structural engineering. And I work for Earthworks Pacific, which is a construction company. So I decided to go to construction. Is those companies that draw the plans. So they do all the math and physics, and they do the design on subdivisions and bridges and roadways and all that kind of thing. So if you see the slide I pulled up, this bottom area to the left is actually a grading plan for a subdivision that we're working on. And the top right plan sheet is what a typical utility plan might look like. It shows the layout for drain, sewer, and water, and the profile below that. So that helps us when we're building. And you can see also manholes and structures in that profile. So for this particular project, it's the Lima Ola, it's an affordable housing in Ele. And prior to us going out and doing any of the work, it was all coffee fields. So our first step was to clear out all the coffee fields. So the design would provide these drawings, and then as a construction company, we would take these drawings and we would build final site. So you can see on the left the subdivision, and you can see kind of the same shape as what was on those grading plans. And then on the right side, those are detention ponds that allow the water to flow out of the site. So this is the Ele project. Construction engineering, so just a little bit about what I do and what we do as a company. So I do all of our estimating and bidding. And what that means is that I get a set of plans and I have to break down everything that we need to do to build that project, whether it be material or time or how we're going to perform the work. And I put a price to all those items and we bid on the project. We present our proposal to the owner, which can be a private owner. For this picture here, it's Huntna State Park. So the owner was the state, and they get various bids, and they typically they take the low bidder and they award you the job. So after you're awarded a project, you create a budget so that you make time, and we would take the estimate and build out a budget for each item of the work. So for example, for this one, there was grading. So grading would have a budget. You see concrete, rock, the striping. These are all separate budget items that we use to track our progress and track our costs on the project. And we schedule our subcontractors out to do work, and for our owner to keep track of where we are with the project and make sure that we finish on time, because typically we have a set subcontractors. Our company, we self-perform the grading work and the utilities, but we would subcontract out or hire another company to do the concrete work. So in this picture, you can see that half of the parking lot is concrete. So that would be a separate company that we would hire on to do. And again, that goes back to scheduling, because you have to make sure that they order their materials in time to complete the work when they're supposed to. And some of these companies have to fly in from outer islands, so they have to schedule their flights and plan that. So it's good to have a good schedule that you can work with from the beginning of the project. Earthworks Pacific, we're a heavy highway and civil construction company, which mainly of the main things that we do. And these are all projects that we've done: sewer line installation, water line tie-in in the middle, and then on the right is the sewer manhole that we've installed with the pipe connecting to it. And just a residential. This is a project, the affordable housing in Honolulu. The top two pictures are at the very beginning of the project, where we had just cleared out the grass and some of the trees. And then the bottom picture is the completed project for our scope of work, which is roadways, concrete, basically anything flat. We are not builders, so we don't do any of the vertical work that you typically see on these types of projects. Would be houses, buildings, anything like that. We go in before the and get it ready for them to go put in the actual house. So you can see that we've done the roadways. You can see all the cul-de-sacs, and then we grass over it, and the builders come in and put in the housing. And this project was about 27 acres in Honolulu, and I think it was about 109 lots. So that's that one. This is another project that we did around the time of the flooding in 2018. So this is what Honolulu Beach Block looked like.
Wow.
after the flooding, you can see the water came away where the water goes all the way up to where the road was. And that is the comfort station, the bathroom that was over there, completely collapsed in because the sand on that side eroded away because of all the water. So we did a lot of dredging to get the beach back to what it looked like before, removing a lot of the sand that had washed in, letting water drain out. And then this road is going to the beach. So we had to kind of build the road back up because it had washed away in the middle. And the top picture is what the beach looks like now. If you haven't been out there, there's parking and a new comfort station. And yeah, so we did all the parking lot area. And like I said, a lot of the dredging to get the beach back to grades that it looked like before the flooding. Another kind of project we do a lot of road erosion protection. So this is a Moana Kai seawall in Kapa'a. And originally the road was washing away and they put these sandbags along the edge to stabilize the side, which is a temporary fix, but not a permanent fix. So what we ended up doing, if you look on the right, is we installed a revetment wall and rock along the edge to stabilize the road. And then we had to repave the road back in. It was cracking and kind of falling over from the erosion. This is one of my favorite projects. It's the Upper Kapahi Reservoir. This was one of the, there were some delays, so it didn't finish till 2018. But on the left, you can see where we started. The water from the reservoir had to be detoured around our work. So there's a pipe along the edge that you can't see that drains towards the outlet. And then the right pictures, the right three pictures are when we're done. So we put in that concrete spillway and the catwalk, that metal catwalk, and it has a level on it so they can keep track of the level of the reservoir. And then took away all our bypass piping, the reservoir filled back up, and this is what it looks like now. This is Waimea Powerhouse Road. So another area where the water was coming through and they had these older pipes going through the road to drain out on the other side, but the pipes were caving in. The road was starting to erode on the side. So what we did is we built these CRM, which is a rock head wall, as you can see in the picture, and put in larger pipes to help with the amount of water that was flowing down in that area and help it drain through without affecting the roads or the houses along, because what would happen is it wouldn't be able to go through the pipe, and then it would start creeping up on the sides and getting closer and closer to the houses. And then this was kind of an interesting project. It was at the football field in Kapa'a, Brian J. Baptiste Sports Complex. And the left top two pictures are what it looked like before. The bleachers were just sitting on what was originally rock, had gone down to dirt, and the field itself wasn't regulation size. So what they had us do, if you look on the bottom, the big picture, that's pre-installation of the bleachers in the sports box. We installed those concrete walkways that the bleachers now sit on. And then on the right side, we put in that sports booth and reinstalled new bleachers in that area, making the field regulation size. This is a project up in Kapa'a. You can see on the left how eroded the road was. There's almost a hole on the side where the water got too high and it was kind of eating away. So we put in a rock slope on the edge to support the road and also protect it from future high levels of water. And you can see our excavator right there picking up the rocks and placing them. And then this is a project that we did at Waimea High School. We put in a grease interceptor, that's that big tank looking thing up to the right. So we installed that and the piping all the way down. But I wanted to show this because a lot of what we do in our company is all underground. So you don't see the pipes and the manholes that service the buildings or the grease interceptor, because by the time we're done, as you can see in the bottom two pictures, it's all cleaned up and paved over and a fresh patch of concrete walkway in that area. But there's a lot of, I mean, up until I worked here, I didn't quite realize the amount of time spent putting piping in the ground and connecting all these systems to service housing or buildings, or this case, Waimea High School. And that's the end of my presentation. I put my contact info on the left, and just if anybody has any questions.
What is the favorite part of your job, or your day-to-day duties or responsibilities?
It's a good question. I spend a lot of time in the office with estimating, spend a lot of time at my computer sitting in this chair, but I love when I get to go out to the job site, whether it's a site visit or a meeting, or I have to measure something in the field. It's really interesting and exciting for me to see what a site looked like before we started any work, knowing what we're supposed to do, looking at the plans, and then seeing the finished product has always been really interesting for me. And when I started Earthworks, it was, they had a full-time estimator, so I was more on the project engineer side. So I would manage smaller projects. I did one up by the Kalalau Trail at the end of the road in Ke'e. We had to stabilize some rocks up there, and that was my first full-time project. So seeing a project go from when you start the process and then the finished product has always been my favorite part of what we do.
Yeah, it must be amazing. I mean, the stuff you do is so impactful. There's so many people using it. And like you said, not everybody knows the level of detail, but seeing it go from like Kauai coffee fields, just driving by it, you see the changes, but the fact that you understand every detail of like what's going on, that's just super cool.
Yeah, and like I said, we do a lot of subdivision work, a lot of housing right now, a lot of housing projects, but we also do things that I had never really thought of, a lot of those road stabilization, the rock slopes. We've done invasive species. We had an invasive species project where they wanted us to clear out invasive trees from along the road near Kalihiwai. That was another interesting project, just because it's different. Something that I never really thought about who does it, or thought that we did that as a company, because we have a lot of heavy equipment, but it keeps it exciting. And every project has its own challenges. And even if it's another subdivision project, it's in a different area, or you have different materials. It's always different, and that's exciting for me. It's not so mundane.
Oh, definitely. Who has another question?
Do you guys work like for your job specifically? Are you guys just focusing on one project, or do you have like multiple projects going on at the same time where you have to like estimate?
So we have multiple projects going on at the same time. I think right now we have 5 projects ongoing. My estimating schedule is kind of up and down. So for example, last week I had 3 estimates due, and this week I don't have any. And then in 2 more weeks, I'll have another 2. It really depends on the demand from for bidding. And we do a lot of county projects. County sends out a lot of projects to bid. We do a lot of state projects. We also work with private owners. So we stay very busy. We've been lucky, we stay very busy. We have at any time, I would say probably about 4 or 5 projects at once. And I think on average, if I go through the year, I have maybe 1 to 2 estimates every week averaged out.
I think
Go
ahead, sorry.
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna ask, since you've been there, what has been the hardest project you've worked on yet?
I think generally the toughest projects that we have are ones that we don't know what we're going into before we get there. There are some projects where they have a problem and they have a proposed solution, and we get there and we tear out the dirt or we tear out an existing walkway or something, and it's not what they thought was out there. Either it's really old and it wasn't on any plans that they have, or it's changed and they lost, so there was no track on what was changing as it was going. And those are always challenging because we have to stop work, come up with a solution. It pushes back our schedule quite a bit. And we don't do any of the design, so we have to take a look at what's there and relay the issue over to the design engineer, who then has to redesign the project to solve the problems that we found. The emergency work up on the North Shore was challenging because we needed to get it done quickly. And it was one of those where every day it was changing because it was based on right after the flooding, there may have been damage. And then as we were doing the work, you realize that further on down the slope, you may not see the damage, but it's starting to erode away. And we want to take care of all of that at once before the next flood comes and it washes away another area of the road. I think, yeah, that would probably be the most challenging.
Well, and I was just gonna ask, because some of the things you're mentioning are definitely related to like climate change and, rising waters and the ocean. And I mean, I would guess this is going to be a growth area for jobs, just all the mitigation we're going to have to do in the future. I mean, what is your perspective? Because you see it. I mean, I'm just guessing, but what do you think about that?
I agree. It seems like erosion, especially on an island, is not going to go away. And Kauai is not old, but a lot of the infrastructure is old. And so there's a lot of repairing things or reinforcing that we see coming up. And another thing is the need for housing. It seems like every time we finish one affordable housing project, there's another 2 that are in planning, which is great. And I don't see that ending in the foreseeable future. It just seems like we're continuing to try to create housing for residents, and that keeps us pretty busy too.
Cool. Any other questions, guys? Yeah. No, Alyssa, this is just so cool, because I think that's the cool thing about having someone like yourself come and explain this to us. Like, as you said, before you started working there, you just don't realize all the detail. So, next time you flush that toilet and it works, it's like, that should be a huge celebration, actually,
Yeah.
because it's complicated. We, just like KIUC, we take so much for granted. You flip on a switch or so, yeah, I think it's, and I love seeing the pictures too, the before and after. And yeah, it's super. And how many years have you worked there now?
I've been at Earthworks for seven years now.
Wow. That's awesome. You must have seen so much stuff. That's super cool.
It is, it's really, I mean, again, it's really exciting. And I feel like as long as I've been here, there's always a new project or a new something with each project. So it stays interesting.
Yeah, it's not like everything's a cookie cutter for sure, I can imagine. And plus there's the problem solving element, and then
Mhm.
it's so tangible. What you produce is, you can see those nice rock walls. Every rock wall you guys built just looks so nice. It looks so strong. So cool. Well, great. If there's no more questions, I want to make sure we're respectful of your time too, Alyssa. And I think Alyssa, actually, I first met Alyssa. Were you in high school when I met you, Alyssa?
I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore in high school because I had to get, I don't know, if you're under 16, you have to get a card that says that you can start working. So yeah, I was 15, I think.
Yeah, Alyssa worked in the lab I used to work in at now Corteva, and I worked for many years with Alyssa's cousin, who's awesome too. So yeah, this is just so cool to think so long ago, and look at you now. It's amazing. And it wasn't that long ago, but it's very impressive. So thank
And I
you.
stayed in the math and science area, so that's good.
Oh, totally. I mean, do you think when you started in civil engineering, maybe even by like, once you knew you were interested in that, did you imagine this would be the kind of work you would do?
Not really, because when I started civil, it was more design and the physics of it, and that kind of thing, which is important when you're in construction, because you need to understand how the system works when you're building it. It helps you look ahead to see if there are any anticipated issues, and to make sure that what you're installing makes sense, so that you can ask the questions ahead of time. But no, I didn't know that I was going into construction until after I had graduated, and I was looking to whether I wanted to stay in San Diego or I wanted to move home. And San Diego had more design opportunities, but this Earthworks happened to have an opening for a project engineer. And I came in for an interview and decided that I wanted to move home. So ended up here, and it's been a great 7 years here. It's still interesting to me. I still love what I do. But no, I didn't anticipate this is what I would end up doing. And at the time, I don't think that I really understood the construction aspect of it. I hadn't seen them put pipe in the ground. I hadn't seen the equipment that goes into grading or even installing a road. Yeah, so it was eye-opening and exciting when I started.
Well, and actually there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about, because I'm not a project manager, but I did in my previous job, we did a lot of project management. Do you have a software you use? Do you guys just have your own system? What do you?
We are a little smaller, so we don't have a full system. Like a lot of the building type contractors have Procore and those other systems. We use, for estimating, we use Heavy Bid, which sets up our jobs and has our equipment rates and labor rates and everything. And we use that to set up our estimating. And we've moved towards a Heavy Bid project management now. So it helps us with our time cards and scheduling and budgeting, and all that now is on through a Heavy Bid system.
Cool. Well, yeah, I love the organization involved. Did you have to get your project management, the PMP certification or anything, or you just?
No, I didn't. For civil engineering, typically you take your EIT, which is an engineering training, and you can do that in college. And then after you get your EIT, or after you work for so many years under a licensed engineer, you can get your license, which means that you can stamp plans. But that typically helps more on the design side. So for construction, there are a few people that have a license, but you're not drawing up plans. So it's good, but it's not as helpful as if you're in design, where you would almost be required to get your license to continue on. We have a license for the company that you can, you take a test and you can get licensed to manage grading work, or A license, B license, they have that kind of thing. So the next step, if I wanted to, would be to get a license, an A license or a B license or a specialty license. But I haven't quite looked into that yet. And for estimating, it's not something that I would need to do right away.
Mhm. Cool. Very good. Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough, Alyssa. That was great. And we'll definitely be sharing the recording too. And I'll encourage students to get in touch if they have any questions. And
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being open for that and this whole thing.
Of course, thank you so much.